What's up, Guardians? Bad Shoes here. Today I'm going to be going over my new favorite Warlock build that I've been using. This is going to be on the new and improved Void 3.0. This is a build so beautiful, so destructive, so deadly, that it honestly might even be too effective for its own good. But before we get into the fine details, I want to take a quick moment to just thank my subscribers. I just started the channel, but hey, thanks dudes. I appreciate the support. Seriously, it really means a lot actually. So thanks. Anyway, I hope you all liked the video. Alright, so moving on, as you can see from the gameplay, I was able to pull off some pretty wacky stuff, like getting my super back pretty consistently, minimal time, I have infinite grenades, constant devour, volatile glaive shots, pretty reliable suppression and weakening debuffs, and last but not least, insane super damage. Oh, also, there's an entire poison setup stacked on top of all that. Yeah, this build is kind of cracked. But there is a caveat, like most builds that revolve around the need for constant killing, this one will be much more effective in a solo setting or smaller fire teams where you aren't fighting other guardians for kills. In other words, you'll feel like a badass in strikes and dungeons, but probably better off babysitting the bomb during the wellspring attack. You know what I mean. So, let's get into it. This build guide is going to be a bit longer and more in-depth, so if you want to skip the discussion and you don't need an explanation of all the specific mods, fragments, and aspects, you can go ahead and click this point here in the video, and you'll see the complete build from there. That being said, if you have a moment, I would greatly appreciate it if you stuck around. This is actually my first build video. I kind of just started the channel recently, so any sort of feedback or retention would be absolutely appreciated. Anyway, moving on. Here at my favorite Wasa Wusa Shirochi, I'm just going to be running through once so you can get a clearer idea of what's going on. Now that we know the basics of what this build is capable of, let's check it out in detail. For my aspects, I'm using Chaos Accelerant and Feed the Void, and for my fragments, well, I didn't actually have any on. As a matter of fact, I haven't even set up the build yet. I only have 2 mods on, and they are a double stack of Ashes to Assets. What this mod does is it allows you to gain super energy from grenade kills, and as long as you're getting an excessive amount of grenade kills, you will get an excessive amount of super in return. This effect does stack, so this is the most efficient way to use these mods. Unfortunately, you will have to give up your ammo finders, but later on you'll see that really isn't a problem for this build. Now, if I only have to sacrifice 2 mod slots on my helmet for the entire foundation of this build, that leaves us with tons of freedom for experimentation and improvements. So, without further stalling, I'm going to actually put this build together and explain my choices, as well as a few alternate suggestions if something doesn't work for you. Alright, so let's note our build's goals. Number 1, I want my super back very quickly. Number 2, I need a constant flow of grenades. 3, my grenades actually need to be able to kill things. And 4, I need some form of get out of jail free card because I'm always in the shit and playing way too recklessly. With this in mind, let's fill out our first aspects and fragments. For the aspects, I'm using Feed the Void and Chaos Accelerant. Feed the Void grants us Devour whenever we get any ability kills, and of course Devour allows us to get our health back immediately upon kill, as well as a small chunk of grenade energy per kill, and that's really what we're here for. Devour's nice, but we're here for the grenades. The more grenades we have, the faster we get our super. Chaos Accelerant is a must-have because not too long ago they nerfed damage over time grenades. Now they don't really last long at all, but charging your grenades allows them to last longer and do more damage, and again, the more grenade kills we get, the faster we get our super. As for Child of the Old Gods, I used it for the entirety of the campaign, and I'm honestly very underwhelmed. I didn't think this needed to be said, but you shouldn't take a child into battle. Plain and simple. Doesn't matter who their parents are. It does have its moments, and I'll give it another chance sometime this week, but for now we're gonna not be using this. Moving on to our fragments, I'm going to use Echo of Expulsion, which makes your void ability kills cause targets to explode. This one is also a must-have to make your grenades even more effective in large groups, but as an added bonus, it really helps with the new melee ability as well. Then I'm going to be using Echo of Undermining, which gives our void grenades the weaken effect, allowing us to do more damage to enemies, again making our grenades even stronger, should go without saying. From there you have a bit of a choice to make. You can either go with Echo of Exchange, which allows your melee final blows to grant grenade energy, which is personally what I'm going to be doing because I'm going to be running around with the glaive in this build, or you can go with Echo of Leeching, which starts health regeneration immediately upon melee kills. This is also good for the glaive, but I would opt to use it more in higher level content for added survivability. There are a few mods we can use to get our grenades back faster on top of Devour, so if you choose to use those mods, then in this case I would definitely take Leeching instead. We're not going to take Echo of Provision because we're really not using our melee that much. Echo of Remnants could be useful in theory, but it only makes your uncharged grenades last about as long as your charged grenades. And if you're always charging your grenades, which you should be, then this fragment won't make a difference other than wasting a fragment slot. Echo of Reprisal has a similar issue. The super energy gain is almost non-existent. You really don't notice a difference whatsoever with this one. If I'm being honest, it's very unfortunate. Echo of Persistence can be nice, especially with the changes that they made to Devour, where it's really just not as potent as it used to be, but Devour is not really the core of the build, and we want to focus on just high ability uptime, and as long as we have that, we should have Devour pretty much always active anyway, so I'm not going to be taking this one. Echo of Domineering right now is most useful if you're using a glaive, however, let's be real, it's kind of just a discipline mod. Bungie, please fix Grave Robber on the glaive, by the way. I'm kind of upset that I had to waste 2 egg yolks on 2 perks that just didn't work. Oh, and Echo of Dilation. Cool. So we're using Feed the Void, Chaos Accelerant, Expulsion, Undermining, and Exchange. Alright, let's set up our mods. With fast super regen and high grenade uptime as our goal, there's really only one mod that comes to mind immediately, and that's Energy Converter. This is a Charged with Light mod that can be found on a Void armor piece. With this mod, if you are at less than 50% of your super and throw a grenade while you're charged with light, it will consume all your stacks of Charged with Light and give you a pretty significant chunk of your super energy. The higher your stacks of Charged with Light, the more super you will get out of it. So from there, we're going to immediately throw on a Supercharged mod, which can be found on a Solar armor piece, and this will allow us to have a maximum of 4 stacks of Charged with Light. Now we need to find a way to become charged with light, and for that we're going to be using Elemental Wells, because not only do they return a little bit of ability energy when you pick them up, but if you're using the Elemental Charge mod and you pick up an Elemental Well that matches your subclass, you will immediately gain 2 stacks of Charged with Light instead of 1, like most other do this and get charged with light mods. As for our ability to generate Elemental Wells, we're going to use Elemental Ordnance, so that way we can spawn them whenever we get a grenade kill, which should be all the time. That leaves us with one more free spot for another Elemental Well mod or another Charged with Light mod, and I like to use Volatile Flow, the mod from the 5th column of the artifact, which grants your Void weapons volatile rounds whenever you pick up a Void Elemental Well. This is a nice one if you're running Void weapons like the Glaive, for example. It's really cool to have a Glaive with volatile rounds. But you could also, in theory, run something like Well of Tenacity instead, which can be found on another Void armor piece. And this will give you, I believe, a 50% damage reduction, which is very, very nice. And with that, the build is essentially done. To recap, the aspects and fragments are Feed the Void and Chaos Accelerant, then Expulsion, Undermining, and Exchange. For the mods, we're using Elemental Ordnance, Elemental Charge, Supercharged, Energy Converter, Volatile Flow, and of course 2 Ashes to Assets mod. These last few mods are completely optional, but can accent this build and make it even more effective. Since I'm running the Glaive, I'm going to be using Suppressing Glaive and Energy Vampirism from the seasonal artifact, and this will greatly help our ability uptime. If you don't like the Glaive or you don't want to use it, you could always use Bomber on a Solar class item, which gives you grenade energy every time you use your class ability. You could also use Innervation on a Solar Leg armor, which reduces grenade cooldown every time you pick up an orb. We aren't exactly generating orbs with this build, but hey, it's nice to have for strikes and things like that. On Stasis Arms, you could have Grenade Kickstart if you don't have to use something like Unstoppable Glaive or any of the other champion mods, and that mod of course will give you some grenade energy back just from throwing a grenade, which can be very, very helpful. If you choose any of these mods, then one thing you could do is swap out Energy Vampirism for Devouring Depths, also from the seasonal artifact, and this will grant you increased damage on your super if you cast while critically wounded or under the effects of Devour, which is actually very potent. I think it like doubles your super damage. And honestly, Energy Vampirism doesn't work if you're one-shotting things before you can suppress them, so it might not be the best play for lower level or casual activities. I'd say probably Devouring Depths is the way to go. As for exotics, plain and simple, Controverse Hold is still going to be the best exotic for constant charged vortex grenades. I don't think there's any disputing that. Now, while that's probably the best exotic to pair with this build, I don't believe it's truly necessary. As we've gone over, there are so many ways of getting our grenade back that the bonus from Controverse Hold, while very beneficial, isn't really a requirement, which frees us up to use something that we might not normally use, something like Necrotic Grips, which actually do pair really nicely with the new exotic SMG, the Osteostriga. And this is what I'll be running because if for some reason all else failed, we still want to have really strong gunplay options as a backup.
Reason number 2. Look what I can do.
But what does that have to do with anything?
And that's just objectively freaking fun. If you do decide to go with Controverse Hold, then 100% for sure you're going to want to run Devouring Depths instead of Energy Vampirism because you just straight up won't need it. Now that that's all set up, let's finally see it in action and go through the rotation. First, you want to charge and throw a grenade with the goal of killing as many enemies as you can with it. These kills will then spawn an elemental well, which you want to run over and pick up. Hopefully, if all is well, you should have gotten a large chunk of your super as well as your grenade back. And if you haven't gotten your grenade back, you should still be under the effect of Devour, so any subsequent kills should help replenish that grenade. If you make those kills melee kills, or especially melee kills on suppressed enemies, you should get even more of your grenade back with 1 or 2 kills, hopefully. Once you have your second grenade, rinse and repeat, charge it up, toss it out at a few more adds, pick up the subsequent well that spawns. From there, you just pop your super and go nuts. And if you chose to run Devouring Depths, then hey, that super is going to be really effective. While you're in your super, any kills you get will reset Devour. You'll be getting your health back, you'll be getting chunks of grenade energy, your super will be doing a fair amount of damage. When your super ends, you should be sitting on a full grenade charge as well as 4 stacks of charged with light. So you just charge up the grenade, throw it into a group of adds, and now you'll notice I got well over a quarter of my super energy, almost a third just from throwing the grenade, and on top of all the kills that we just got, we got over 50% of our super just from throwing a single grenade. If you find yourself in a situation without Devour and no grenade energy, you can always switch off of the glaive revealing the singularity that you've been hiding in your pocket and use that to reactivate Devour, as well as give you more grenade energy back. And I would kind of consider this the get out of jail free card that I mentioned earlier. But if you don't have that, then again, just proceed to smack things for your grenade. That's all you need. And if things are too far away and you don't want to smack them, hey, switch over to Osteostriga and just dump a vat of acid on the entire room and call it a day. So that's always going to be a backup option. So that's about it, but before I leave you guys, I just want to reiterate that this build does work best in a solo situation or in small fire teams where you can get kills without having to fight your fellow guardians for them. That's not to say this build doesn't work in something like the Wellspring, for example. You're just going to find yourself saying, hey, dang it, Blueberry, stop stealing all my kills, more often than not. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. This is my first actual build video I've ever made, so any and all feedback would be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you have an awesome day. Peace.